the way that I've reframed my depression in my adult life and in learning more about science and having my show and thinking about it as one of the biggest scientific mysteries there are in terms of what's going on in the brain from a neuroscience standpoint, from the especially from an evolutionary biology. Why would an organism benefit? Why would it spread more genes? Why would it have more inclusive fitness with depression? Hello, everybody, and welcome to Look Ma, No Meaning,
with your hosts, Shane Mauss and
Ramin Nazer.
How's it hanging, Shane? It's been 5 seconds. Or no, it's been longer than that. I think we talked like 3 days ago off the podcast, and now it's been a week since we've talked on the podcast, and we're resuming our discussion of habit forming. Is that correct? Is this the episode?
Yes. I have a couple of things that are tangents but related. So the last episode, we basically we were talking about like New Year's resolutions, building habits and stuff. And I was basically just kind of sharing the basics of what I've learned from scientists, not like what necessarily works for me, not what's necessarily like either one of our perspectives. I was just kind of summing up the general consensus of the little heuristics that I seem to have picked up on, and what the kind of general consensus in inductive reasoning, using studies to make kind of painting with a broad brush. It's not perfect for everybody. This isn't deductive, definitive, everyone must do this.
But if it doesn't work for you, you're probably a freak, and you're not like ever going to be worth anything in society, just to let you know.
Yeah, it probably won't work out for you.
Yeah, sorry. But if it does work out, then who knows? Maybe you'll be working for us one day. I like the saying, maybe I'll be working for you one day, just to tell people, who knows? Maybe you'll be working for me one day.
I mean, it's if my poorly remembered like very 101 unnuanced science tips don't work for you, then nothing's probably going to, and you might as well give up. But so it was basically we set up the idea of small incremental gains. So rather than hitting the lottery and getting 10 rewards or whatever right off of the bat, and peaking and then being disappointed after that, you get 1 reward and then 2 rewards, and these raises kind of keep you going. And you can apply this to all these different aspects of your life. You're doing more push-ups, and now you're showing up to work more punctually or whatever. But these incremental rewards, we're staying away from plateaus. And the reverse that I didn't bring up is that the incremental rewards work really well for mental health. But in terms of drops, you want like a sharp, acute drop. You want to be paralyzed, and then you want to like break your back and then start slowly recovering with the incremental rewards. Go through it, be like, oh my God, how am I going to live with this? And then slowly start getting better. That's usually better for people's kind of wherewithal in life than the slow degenerative diseases that just like each week, each month, you're getting a little worse and a little worse. Like most people with like dementia or something like that are like, if I could just stop it right here, that would be okay. But knowing that every week, just out of my control, basically, it's going to get worse and worse. I tend to do that. I do incremental gains, and then I just fall off a cliff. I hit rock bottom really quick. And then I just can it's easy to get from rock bottom to I'm not at the very bottom anymore.
So let's give some concrete examples. So you've
Yeah.
got falling off a cliff, literally the 8-foot rule where you broke both your feet.
Yep.
You've overdone it on the psychedelics and maybe also withdrawal from alcohol at the same time during the psychedelics, which led into the psych ward.
Mm-hmm.
Is there another one of like a overnight kind of everything shifting? Those are two big ones. I mean, it's the physical and mental.
Just things like things that'll happen where the unexpected things are like, say, my Facebook ads. All of the sudden, one day, Facebook changes their algorithm, and now I can no longer advertise my psychedelic show in the same way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, this was going amazing, and now all of the sudden I'm having to spend like 10 times as much to get the same crowd in for a show. My margins are all screwed up, and then having to refigure it out. That's a small example. COVID is the best example, and I think that this is where people screwed up. And I was trying to tell people this early on, and we talked about this on Here We Are, which is get it in your head that this is going to be 2 years. And then
Minimum.
if it's 1 year, get it in your head that it's going to be 2 or 3 years. And then if it ends up being like 1 year, 18 months, something like that, that's a huge win. That's like, oh, wow, it was half the pain that we thought it was going to be. What broke everybody, part of what broke everyone, was telling people, just another 3 weeks. No, just another 3 weeks, as it's getting worse and
that
worse.
That works for a while,
worse.
though. I think up to a certain point, then there is a breaking point, which I think we saw in June of 2020, when that was like the height of social unrest and just upset from every angle. But yeah, the foot, what is it? Is it the foot in the door? Not fallacy, foot in the door.
Yes.
Thing. The reason I'm pausing and making such terrible content is because the stupid computer cord is doing its thing again where it bleeps in and out. Oh, I think I fixed it. Okay, good. You're back. Good. Great part of the episode. Leaving it in for showing that you demonstrating what the handicap principle. The more the thing screws up, the more fit you think it is, because if it can afford to still be in my office and screw up this, it must be a really good monitor, or at least have sentimental value. Otherwise, why would he keep the monitor if it's just constantly breaking, calling attention to itself as to why it should be thrown away? It costs like the amount it takes to get delivery like twice, maybe. Like
if it can afford
this monitor.
Oh man, that is why all the technology, they're just going to make cuter and cuter.
Yeah.
Just impossible to get rid of. But you also need the next thing. That'll be the next thing. You'll need to get the new thing, but you'll also need to keep the old thing.
Apple figured that out, because I mean, the box it comes in, that matte like coating that just is smooth to the touch, that satin white box, and you just keep it in your closet and you're never going to use it, and you can't even resell it a year later, but you're still like, oh, I might need the little perfect satin box, or I'll make an art project out of it. But I never do. It just sits there and reminds me of more clutter. Maybe I will get rid of you once and for all.
Once you eventually have that many satin boxes, one day you're going to make a huge display and people are going to be like, wow, what'd you just put a thing on Craigslist asking for satin boxes? And you can just tell them that those are the ones that you stored away all those years. So small incremental gains, and then like the losses are a little bit different, but just to keep things basic, that's what we were talking about. And the way to execute that is to, one, bite off small things, but to have measurable, so very clearly defined, realistic, measurable goals. So rather than saying, I'm going to make more money. That doesn't mean anything. You need to be I'm going to make this amount more money each month. And
Have you heard the Dave Ramsey show?
No.
It's like the #1 finance podcast in the world. It's the most boring, like pragmatic, fiscally conservative podcast, and it's just this guy Dave Ramsey, and the little soundbite at the beginning of the show is, making more money a year is a wish, not a goal. It's a wish. And I like how like stern he is. And the show is literally just these people in the middle of the country calling in saying, I have $13,000 in credit card debt and $2,000 in medical debt. And I was just wondering how I can blah, blah, blah. And then he says, well, how much do you make a year? And then they say, and he's like, well, you just need to put 500 towards your smallest debt every month. And then it's the most boring. I know I've called it boring like 8 times, and yet I've still listened to multiple episodes, but it's the most no nonsense financial thing. And people just celebrate, like, after 2 years, I've eliminated my student loans and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is making sure that the things that you're measuring are getting you to that goal at the same time. So if you're like, I want to get healthy, and then so you could be like, well, I'm going to measure myself on a scale each month, and if it lowers, that means I'm getting healthier. Well, that is an easy thing to measure and define, but you might be measuring the wrong thing. Yeah, an anorexic person can start weighing less, whereas someone getting really fit might put on muscle mass and might actually increase their weight on the scale. So if your actual goal is to get healthy, you need to make sure that the things that you're measuring are actually what in line with what the goals are. And then the thing that we didn't mention that's applicable, because I want to use this as a case study, I have questions here from people, is Keystone Habits. So the idea of having something, and we talked about this in the team meeting, having what are the smallest things that have the most kind of cascading effects that create change in other so saying like, I'm going to start drinking X glasses of water a day is something that you can put in your Fitbit thing and measure it. And okay, you're drinking more water and you're supposed to be hydrated. That's terrific. That's what the goal is. But the downstream other positive implications are that you're not drinking as much soda, and if you're slamming a big glass of water before dinner at night, maybe you're not 30 minutes before or whatever, maybe you're not going to overpack your plate and eat more than you really need to be satiated. And so you might end up eating healthier as well because of your water. In the same way that jogging, for example, which is something that I want to start implementing regularly again, but it's so damn cold here in Wisconsin. But that's something that hopefully leads to just slightly better, just a better attitude because of whatever neurochemistry is being released from running. And then
the rich get richer.
And then you're hopefully more. So this is the mistake that I always make is I'm like, oh, I don't have time to exercise. But usually if I exercise, I end up being more productive. So if I'm just looking in terms of what actually got done in a day, if I looked at the productivity, it would always fall on the days that I had good exercise regimen, would have higher productivity. So from that point of view, I don't have time not to exercise, but it's one of the wonderful narratives that my brain loves to tell me. Is like, no, I got to get back to these emails. I can't go for a jog in the freezing cold winter right now.
The thinking mind loves protecting its job under any circumstances, even if it like would benefit from a break. It's just, it convinces you, and since it's the thinking mind, it has the best reason, so it can be like, no, it's too cold to exercise, and you'll probably slip, and then you won't be able to exercise for months. So really, to exercise, you should not exercise. That's the best way to exercise. Remember the last time you hurt yourself? You don't want to do that again, do you? Stay in, watch The Mandalorian, watch Your Mom's House. Watch this guy fall on his ass like for 3 hours straight while they call them an artard or something. And I was gonna say with not with the eating thing, but similar to it. I remember when I first learned about brushing your teeth in the morning and like the daytime before it was just a nighttime thing, and I wouldn't do it during the day. I'm like, no, I'm not a fucking nerd. I brush my teeth at night. I don't feel like doing it now. And then when you do it regularly, it makes you snack less, and it makes you feel like more of a person. It's like, my mouth is clean right now. I could talk to anybody. It's completely flossed out. I could have a close-up conversation with anyone. That's pre-COVID, of course. Now I couldn't, but you just you feel better about it.
Yeah, and then there's the new normal in your mouth or whatever is when you taste. I have that. I'm a mouthwash user. I sometimes use mouthwash like 4 times a day. I just like rinsing out my mouth after every meal, and when I don't do it, I'm like, oh, gross. What is, I'm just going to leave this on my tongue. But before you implement those things, you don't realize how.
Yeah, you don't know how bad you stink. Like the way in that Parasite movie, remember how the rich people are like, poor people always smell like fish. They always smell like the fish market. And he's just, he can't even stand the smell of people not as rich as him because he's just curated a perfect environment at all times, whereas the poor people have to go wait in the subway and work their fish market job. So what was the point of that? Oh yeah, Parasite. Film. Sorry.
Smelling bad associations.
Yeah.
No. So with that in mind, then I also have, in terms of big goals like this podcast, there's something that now this is getting away from the New Year's resolution talk, but I think it's related. So I was doing a game night with Patreon fans last night, and I said a thing. And I was like, ooh, I wonder if that might be a better name for the podcast. And we haven't, at the time that we're recording this, we haven't published it. We kind of have some of the artwork done. We've been saying it's called Look 'em Out, No Meaning. So that's probably what the name is. And then I thought of Mind Under Matter. We are
Mind Under Matter.
Yeah, we were talking about Wim Hof, and someone was talking about they had been Wim Hofing or whatever, and then they were talking about how the idea of being in an ice bath or whatever, and ice cold water, and taking the pain and mind over matter, and I was like, I prefer Mind Under Matter. I was like, oh, it does kind of sum up what it'd at least be a good title for an episode or something.
It's got that ring for it, and I'm just seeing if it already exists.
It doesn't.
It exists as a song already, but yeah, let's look into that. This is fun to have it documented, where the podcast has 8 names before it's even out. And so people listening to episode 1 think it's called this, but nope, it's called this later.
Well, we can always put intros in and stuff to correct the pre-recorded episodes.
But Mind Under Matter is cool. Like I could see it being like the logo we have now is us on the 2-person bicycle, and then we could be, the hill could be like a brain shape, and then the brain is like thinking up the world that we're riding on.
I
Something like
pictured that same sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Maybe that's it.
Because then it's, so much about the subconscious, and it's including meaning, and it's kind of got the low, dark, depressed sort of anti pep talk, but we're still actually trying to do the same thing as the pep talks. We're just doing them without ignoring depression and all of that, and letting that be expressed as well.
Yeah. And at the least, like, look ma no meaning could just become a shirt or something that we have.
Yeah. And so the thing that, after I said it and I ran it by everyone, the thing that kind of sold it for me was a couple people said, well, if I'm sharing it, if I'm telling people about a podcast and they say there's this podcast I like, look ma no meaning, it requires explanation. Usually when I tell people the name, I have to be like, well, let me send you this picture that Ramin made that inspired the thing. There's a backstory. Whereas mind under meaning doesn't even need to mean anything to, just someone hearing it for the first time.
Is it mind under meaning or mind under matter?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, mind under matter.
Okay.
Yeah, the reverse of mind over matter. So mind under matter. And it's catchy and it's memorable because it's just a quick play on an old
And we can call it Mum like British people do. You're listening to a new episode of Mum here on the No Meaning Network podcast. Listen to Mum every Monday or whenever we put it out. Are you the two lads from Mum? Yeah. Can I have your autograph? No, COVID's still going on. All right. Better luck next time. Now we return to Mum. Yeah, it's got to be mind under matter. It's just got to be just for the acronym, because the other acronym is look ma no me. It's like limnum, like listen to look, but then this listen to Mum.
I think that's it. I think it's the title. I also put it on Discord, and just quick before this, not that many people responded because I just put it up, but the 9 out of 9 people that responded, and I was just like, which of these names do you like better? I didn't tell them the context or anything else, what the show is about or anything, and all of them picked the
then
mind
that's it.
Under matter.
And we can call our listeners
mummies.
Mummies, yeah, like the Egyptian people, sugar mamas, sugar mums. Thanks for listening, sweet sugar mums. Yeah, it's got it. Like whoever cast as the role, like just got a phone call saying, yeah, so you've been demoted to an extra, and we're giving your lead role to this other character we call Mum. No, and they're like, well, I mean, it was just some random person, I understand, but this is an all-star of our time, great actor here.
This is why I brought this up during the show, because I was thinking about this before we were recording, that what I want people to hear is our usual conversations and how great and interesting they are, and hilarious too, but they're also, so many of them are us talking about the behind the scenes of we're figuring out our careers and our angles and the drive and we're always updating one another with like, this isn't, I took on too many things, or, and so I think it's going to be an added, letting listeners into the process is also just brings out our relationship with one another.
Yeah, it's like Larry Sanders' show a little bit, where it's like the show and then there's the other half, which is the behind the scenes of the show, but it's still part of the show.
Yeah. All right, I love this. And that was going to lead me to, I was wondering, I wanted to ask you about this. with depression because we've talked about your...
Got it. Yes. Actually, I'm not depressed this week. I'm good.
We both talked about, I haven't been depressed in basically all of, that's not totally true. I had some bouts here and there, but less than normal. But in past episodes, we've already been talking about you having a hard time getting out of bed, yet cranking out creative pieces constantly. And I think that depression is such a thing. Anxiety is something that people respect. Anxiety is that's just the successful man's
type A. Yeah.
disease.
Anxiety is type A and depression is type B.
Yeah. And I think that the way that I've reframed my depression in my adult life and in learning more about science and having my show and thinking about it as one of the biggest scientific mysteries there are in terms of what's going on in the brain from a neuroscience standpoint, from the especially from an evolutionary biology. Why would an organism benefit? Why would it spread more genes? Why would it have more inclusive fitness with depression? What is the utility of depression? Dogs get depressed. Rats get depressed. Chimps get depressed. What the hell is going on? And I don't like any of the ideas. Like, that's it. That's the answer. I've never heard anything that's satisfied me. The closest is that you have two monkeys fight. Guy that wins is real confident. That confidence is super useful. That's going to yourself, I have this increased status. I have more respect in this tribe. I'll have more access to resources and especially more access to mates now. That's something that you absolutely want to be aware of. So that makes all sorts of sense. The other guy goes off and pouts. Why in the world would you go off and pout? Why in the world wouldn't you pull up your bootstraps and work harder than ever? My gosh, you just lost a fight. Now you got to work twice as hard to regain whatever else. Why would you sit around moping? And the idea is it's a whole lot better than the alternative, which is rushing right back in to the exact same situation and making the same mistake over and over and over again.
So it's to force you to reflect rather than continue to keep putting chips in the machine.
Rather than that monkey being like, let's go with round number 2 and losing again. Not only did he just lose that fight, and if he's going to fight the same guy, he'll probably lose again, but now he's in worse shape. Now he's fighting that guy again, but now he just lost a fight and he's like, his arm's sore and everything else. So let's sit back and evaluate a new strategy. Maybe if I form alliances, or maybe if people feel bad for me, or maybe if I think of a creative way of fishing fruit out of the bottom of the river that had fallen out of the tree and invent this new tool. The other my friends will take notice and think that's really cool, that little scooper thing that I made. Maybe I'll get mates that way. And it's a way of
Elon
finding...
Musk monkeys just has a little scooper tool. Fucking Elon monkey, and he's not feeding everyone and just working on toys that he likes, like a scooper. You know, it's only because he got his ass kicked on Thursday, right? He wouldn't be doing shit if his ass wasn't kicked on Thursday.
The Elon Musk of monkeys is trying to do something. That's the monkey that's like inventing a slingshot in the tree to just for kicks, just to see how high it can shoot itself into no value whatsoever. Hey, Elon, there's there's space junk in the atmosphere that's crashing into satellites that's reaching a critical mass. And if that happens, no more internet. Can you imagine? No more internet.
That'd be quite a day.
Just all of the satellites just start exploding like one by one because they're hit by a pea-sized little bit of debris that's flying around at 17,000 miles an hour.
Because it's gaining momentum.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
And
does it only speed up? Because why would it slow down, right? It would only slow down if conservation of momentum.
Yeah, and I think that there's different. I think they're moving in slightly different patterns and everything too. Because they need to. So they're having to. I don't know enough about this, but I know they're having to. I know it's an issue that people are like, this could be like, that's a crazy one. Getting hit by an asteroid, we're all dead. But losing the internet now, wow. It's hard to even imagine
without it. And during COVID too, like without COVID, we would just be like, okay, it's just Burning Man until it comes back. I guess we'll have a campfire outside. Even though the electricity still works inside, we're going to pretend that since the internet's gone, all the inside electricity is worthless too. So we would just have like an outdoor archaic revival Burning Man. But during COVID, it would just be like, well, shit. Hopefully I have enough on my external hard drive and DVDs to get me through this. But we're like, I don't know if you have this too. Just we're such neophiles. Is that the word? I know file always sounds like pedophile, but neophile is when you just want everything to be new. So if you click on a video and you see it came out in 2020, you're like, that is ancient. Even January 2021, ancient. Like I need it within the last 24 hours because who knows what's changed in that time. Like even if it's just a comedy podcast, I'm like, too old to begin training.
I have
my half-ass Yoda.
My thing.
Too old.
Your Yoda's the only bad impression I've heard you do so far.
Too old to begin watching.
That's getting better. You just need to warm up into it.
Yeah.
The thing that gets me is candy. If you put the word new on candy in a convenience store, it's so stupid. I'll buy it every time. There's never good new candies coming out. Never.
No, they figured out the good flavors a long time ago.
Oh, candy. There's never been a good new one. It happens like once a year. You know, where it's like, okay, this is pretty good. But
did you ever hear Jesse Elias's joke about like in the 90s they had like all the best flavors, like wild raspberry, yeah. And then like after 2000 it's like 9/11 hits, and then it's like pomegranate acai, like fucking post 9/11 flavors.
Post 9/11.
Have we talked about this before? I know I've talked about it with someone before, or just I've yelled about it in the apartment, but just the way that big impacts on culture affect music and movies and stuff, and how it gets hit we reach peak, like having a good time, and then it falls. Like let's say AIDS totally killed the 80s, like the positive like hair metal thing, and new wave, like it goes out of style after AIDS, and then following that becomes like Seattle grunge rock, flannel, like just really depressed sounding music. And then we kind of get out of that and we get back into Frosted Tips and Smash Mouth and 311 and that, and then 9/11 happens, and then it's like, okay, now back to wearing black and eyeliner, and then it's like these cycles of music being and then
the Black Keys. That's so good. That's interesting. I'm just starting to read this book. It's not out yet, but it'll be, oh man, what's Carrie Nixon, I think is her name. She
from
was
Sex and the City.
She's been a guest on the Here We Are podcast in the beginning
Oh,
of
that's
COVID.
why I know the name.
And she's coming back on to promote her new book. So she's a literature professor who has, through her entire career, specialized in disease and pandemic literature. So when
She's probably losing her mind.
she is obsessed with
Imagine
diseases.
studying Star Wars. Like you study Star Wars or something, and then the whole world is just making Star Trek references at you the whole time. You're like, it's not even the right universe.
Yeah, there's that, but it's also there are people that love diseases. People that study diseases study them because they find them incredibly interesting and impressive, and they're just like, whoa, how does it do that? They have a real appreciation for the mechanisms of the disease and just what it can cause and the various tricks that it does. So a lot of them are really quite fond of COVID in a fascination way. Like, whoa, it's really figured out this new way of duping the perfect host at the perfect time and all of these other but
What's
anyway,
the latest word? Is it from a lab, or they're not sure? Or as far as experts go, are they like, this was not necessarily there's a conspiracy to have released it, but was it being worked on in a Wuhan lab for perhaps to be studied for other reasons, not necessarily to unleash and kill?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's a popular one going on right now where because I think it very well could have been lab leak. There's something weird about that. If it's lab leak, then so I hear it from the conspiracy people a lot. And it's one of those where they'll use, like, it could very well be true. So they use that bit of truth to be like, and so China is covering up. They've covered up that this was a lab leak. They may have, they may not have. And then because that's a cover up, it's all a cover up, all of it. And so because instead of thinking, oh my God, there's a supercharged virus that escaped a lab and a government's covering up that fact. My God, we should really be concerned about COVID. For whatever reason, it makes people go, so it's all just a made up, leaked hoax story. But I think it could be. I think that we'll get down to the bottom of it because geneticists should be able to trace the genes back at some, just like we can trace genes to see how related you are to a sloth or something. They can figure out the various mutations,
except for the smiling part.
I will say that the people that have liked that the most really come at me with lab leak stuff.
Lab always sounds bad, but like, who knows if we didn't have labs studying those viruses, then perhaps we would be even worse off. And then something that didn't leak from a lab comes and fucks us up. And since we weren't experimenting in labs, we don't know how to handle it.
Right.
Even if we had all the sage in the world.
I mean, there are horrible things that there's been close calls. So smallpox, which is the only disease that's ever been fully eradicated, or pathogen anyway. It was found. Did I tell you this already?
I don't think so.
They once found it in a vial in a shoebox in a closed down lab. Smallpox.
The last one, or supposedly the last strain, and it's still alive in the shoebox.
It was in a shoebox.
Oh, you could get a lot on eBay for that. You could get like at least $7,000 for that. New in box.
$7,000.
NIB, smallpox, fuck up your whole neighborhood, leave town. What was that, 100 years ago?
Um,
How long has that been gone?
1700s, and I'm just starting to read her
Pre-Beethoven. Wow.
book, and it was so there's this woman who, I'm terrible with names, so I'm sorry I'm not giving this woman credit, but I won't give anyone credit because I don't know anyone's name that had anything to do with any of this. But there was some country where the Europeans viewed them as sort of primitives or whatever, and they had stumbled on what's that?
Oh, I said, who did they view as primitives? Just
some other country.
Yeah, that's par for the course. The British see the Welsh as primitives.
We're back to De Buffon from the very first episode 0, and they had stumbled on inoculation. This kind of anthropologist or this woman visiting, saw that they did this treatment, which they put, I'm sure, looked horrifying. They had someone that had smallpox. They'd get smallpox in an avocado or something and have pus, and they would cut people's veins open and put it into their veins. And that country had I think someone went there to figure out why they had lower rates of smallpox than basically everywhere else in the world, finds this practice, tries to bring it back to Europe, and there was all these problems with it. One, these savages do what process? And then it was a woman bringing it too, and women can't know things. And eventually, it was using cowpox, I guess, was a way that some dude figured out to, one, make it a bit safer, so it wasn't the actual smallpox that you were putting in, just something very similar. And then also it was a dude rebranding it. So 70 years went by from the time they had a method that would have saved countless lives, actually there are counted lives, how many people died from smallpox in those 70 years. 70 years went by from the time they had the cure, or the treatment, not cure, but the process of getting a means to get rid of smallpox, to the time that it was adopted publicly. It took 70
a whole generation, or whatever.
Two generations.
Yeah, 2 generations.
So when people are saying this vaccine is rushed, which it's not, all the stages were met. It's just I didn't know this when I first heard it, so I don't know why I expect everyone else to. It's quite interesting. It's just that because there's so much COVID, there was you could compare the experimental and control group faster than Ebola. You give a placebo and you give a vaccine, and then you got to wait 5 years for there to be enough Ebola around in the population to be like, okay, that vaccine worked. With COVID, there was so much, and that's why U.S. The people working in the U.S. did it so much faster than everywhere else in the world. It wasn't because America's vaccine science was better than other labs. It was because we had so many cases of COVID that they were able to test it and validate it faster.
We get the bulk discount, like when you order t-shirts. So it gets the Disney Fast Pass too, because this is pretty urgent. It makes sense that it should be more controversial if it was not rushed.
That's what I always ask people. How fast would you like the pandemic to be over? What speed at which would you like COVID to go away? Slowly? You don't seem like the patient type to me. Are you enjoying quarantine? I guess we can wait and have a measured approach, but not if you're the exact same person who's also against masks and distancing and everything else, which of course you are. Every time.
We're going to get the vaccine, and there's going to be a computer chip in it, if not now, later. And there's going to be some bad stuff that comes with it, and it's just what it is, and that's okay. There's way more good that comes with it, but just accept the chip, accept the vaccine, and it's going to be okay. You can play video games in your brain, like the Tesla monkey that they got. I don't know if you've heard about that, but Elon's
that.
like, we've solved the problem of monkeys not being able to play video games in their minds, and we've implemented a solution that involves involves a monkey playing video games. For a brilliant guy, he has no charisma and is terrible at explaining stuff.
Which is weird because he's basically just a salesman. What's funny is he's Thomas Edison. He's not Tesla. Tesla was a visionary that would be able to picture a thing.
He says that too.
And make it. Oh, Musk does?
Yeah, Musk says like actually more of a fan of Edison, and then it goes and lists off what he likes about Edison.
So interesting that he says that. I just picked up on that as my own. I'm like, this dude's Edison. He's electrocuting elephants in the street to show how bad is to discredit his competitors. And
is he actually? I mean, I know that Edison did that because he was afraid of alternating current taking over direct current. But what is the analogy there with Elon? What's he doing there with the elephants?
I think jumping on the anti-COVID red pill free speech bandwagon is a way of like really taking it to the libs. It's weird. It's kind of interesting because, gosh, I'm talking so out of school here, but I think, hey, if you make self-driving cars, I give you a lot of wiggle room to screw up in all.
If you make self-driving cars, I'll suck your dick for 7 minutes. All right, 8 minutes, but no more. 8 minutes with an actual clock that has not been tampered with, completely aligned to the rotation of a cesium atom.
I mean, self-driving cars are going to revolutionize our lives in so many unexpected and amazing ways. I simply can't wait for cars. But the thing is that's an easy thing to celebrate, and it looks cool, and great. It should look cool. I love everything that Tesla is doing with the cars. Sweet, awesome. But the thing is the championing of the Mars stuff, that's kind of, remember when we were talking about the Challenger mission and it blowing up because it was basically a PR stunt? That's what's going on there. You could clean up space junk and truly save the planet that we're actually on. The problem is no one's going to give you a whole hell of a lot of credit for doing it.
And he said, and this is interesting, and I see why he sees it this way. I think the opposite would be weird, but he said something about how the Mars is not owned by a country of Earth. Like whoever is on Mars gets to claim ownership of Mars, something like that. Ooh. So basically he's saying that I'm not claiming Mars for the United States or even for Earth. Like if I get to Mars, this is my fucking planet.
Mars.
Yeah, so I get my own planet, which is, I don't know, it's not good.
Yeah. It's
trying to do my Tim Dillon not good. I can't do it today. Not good.
If you think you're going to be invited, I mean, to position it as this is what, Stephen Hawking, who I love, would often say we need to get off Earth eventually.
We need to get... Damn it, I can't. But I'm all about not being able to do impressions today. That's the fun of this episode.
But there's... Say you got 100,000 people colonizing Mars. I did an episode earlier, COVID. I had the guy on, they had a documentary come out on Netflix about this biosphere that they did in the 90s. And I had a guy on that lived in it.
Oh, I think he was on Future Fossils too.
There's just a bunch of stuff that kind of went wrong in there and wasn't perfect, and it was a cool experiment. But man, to figure out to not be, hey, we need a little we needed a little cheat here. We needed to come in and let a little oxygen in, and then we, you still have the whole outside world to be like, okay, we'll sneak a little food in there for you.
Plus the unforeseen issues that we don't even know what's going to happen long term if we had it set up on Mars, and assuming all the tests went fine in the biosphere here, whatever unforeseen solar flare that affects Mars but doesn't affect Earth, and just little things like that.
Yeah. And so say you get 100,000 people up there, and they're going to expand, and they're going to create Eden. They've done it. It's perfect. But what's 100,000 people? 100,000 people, that's it, the population of Earth. Like, oh, we stuck all of our money into this thing to get 100,000 people out of here. Sorry, the other 7 billion people on
it's probably 8 now, right?
On Earth, something like that.
Yeah, 100,000 is a small town. That's like what the town I grew up in. That's when I was growing up in it, the population was maybe like 30 to 50,000, and now it's 100. So now I think of it as that.
So it seems like a PR stunt, but I also, if I'm being honest with myself, I love space stuff. I love human innovation. I love advancement. I love oddballs. I like eccentrics. I on the surface, like most things about Musk, I worry about giving a bipolar person the most amount of money. being that I'm bipolar, like, don't give me $1 trillion, please.
And with criticizing these folks, I mean, we discussed it with whether it's Kevin Hart or The Rock or Dave Chappelle or Joe Rogan or Elon Musk, like, when you've got $100 million plus, like, you're on the table for the Mum podcast to make fun of you, because that's the cost of admission. If I had $100 million, I would be delighted at 2 little gnats making fun of me on their Zoom show and like trying to get their monitor to work, and like I eat monitors for breakfast and fire people for dessert, and
in a way that's really like, well, we should consider their feelings as well.
No. You name your kid XB57 question mark, you get made fun of for life, and you're gonna. That's that's not the kid's real name. They did that as a goof, probably.
Yeah.
They're like, let's make Tesla stock dip for a day so we can buy some more.
Yeah.
And have it.
I wonder what they do. Do you know what they call their kid? I bet they call it, because what do you have? Because they have other kids that probably can't pronounce or remember the name. They must call him like Zippy or something. If that was my brother, or is it a boy or a girl? I don't
know. It's non-binary, probably. I forget the name. Let's see.
I would just call it Zippy or something. Just like the most insulting thing you could call a nerd's thing. Yeah. Like when they create a really fancy name for one of their inventions. Like, oh, so what's your gadget do? It's not a gadget.
So the kid is XAEA-XII. So it's like XAA7 something. It's actually named after the first computer system that was installed in the Apollo 12 missions. And my partner wanted to also add 7. And her favorite number is 7. Man, I wish he was more like John Carmack, because that guy he's got the gift of gab with technology and enthusiasm and talking about it. And he's a nerd, and he lives the nerd life. He's not like a nerd that's now trying to be cool.
I'm not familiar.
Oh, just look up John Carmack anything and just notice that he never says and it's just information condensed in a perfectly understandable way, followed by more, and you just start to get excited about VR and general artificial intelligence and so on.
I was watching there's going to be an improvement on the show because I was watching, and I was going to bring this up in terms of setting goals and what's realistic and what's manageable to change in yourself, and also having an honest look at yourself. I was looking back at our, and this will tie back into depression too. I was rewatching our episodes of Mom, and I thought, which I never do, I never watch myself. I hate it. But I'm getting more used to it. And I noticed I say like all the time. And sometimes it's appropriate. A lot of times it's just, and then this guy was like, instead of saying, and then this guy said, but it was
Buried definitely. Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, just, yeah, like is the quickest way to use that.
Yeah, but I thought, see there, I just said, oh, I thought instead, because then you can mix up the words a little bit. It's like, oh, there's an opportunity where I can grow a little bit, and I could take it down. If I cut it by 10, 20%, it would be perfect. And then I don't need to beat myself up for every time I use the word like or focus too much on it, because it is useful. And it's also a way of saying, like I mentioned, inductive reasoning. It's also a way of saying, hey, this is a metaphor for, I'm not saying this is precisely what's going on. I'm saying this is like a thing,
Yeah. It's tough to, or keep going.
Oh, so I was curious. Yeah, why don't you say what you're
I was going to say it's difficult to restrict words, especially when they're not like main words. Like I was thinking of course, in most of our heads, we probably have a red alert for the N word, where it's like, well, just don't say that one. That's the easy one. I'll put red alert on this one. And then it's like, okay, what about the F word, not fuck, the other F word that refers to gay people, and like, don't say that F word. Okay, alert orange, throw the R word in there.
Yeah.
Everything after that is kind of like, nah, just kind of say it, and then if it slips out, sometimes apologize or don't. But like, to put like and there, especially when they're used so much, it's like, ooh, geez, how do I give that N-word status? I don't know how to give that N-word status unless the outside world inflicts it upon me.
So I looked at it and I was thinking, one of the best ways to address it. What do you think about this? I think sometimes the best way to address a problem. So old Shane would have looked at it. It's embarrassing to see yourself recorded not being perfect, or seeing any of your old material or anything, because it's Will Anderson. Once, a hilarious Australian comedian once said, it's always like looking back at an old high school photo.
It's like looking back at a high school yearbook where you look at your face and your face is a little, it's more bumpy and now it's more smooth. And you're like, why isn't my face smooth back then? And then you realize that it's because your face cleared up because of the hormones. This has been on time. Thanks to you coming to the Melbourne Cracker Festival. Coming up next to the stage, we've got Aj Barker, the number one comedian in all of Melbourne. Just off his last tour in Brisbane. I love Aussies. I want to be an Australian.
Too easy. I love the way that language can influence people, because they say no worries and too easy, and they are that chill all the time. When I was first there,
everything is trying to kill them there. Like everything could just potentially just bite your head off, or like a little tiny ant-sized thing could like put your whole body into permanent paralysis where they can't even take you off light support.
I remember
everything looks pretty and is deadly there.
Being there for the Sydney Comedy Festival and having this thing go wrong with the printing of a time of a show, and they had to scramble to do things, and they weren't even normally. Someone in the U.S. would have been like, oh, I gotta get on the phone. As soon as they found out that there was an issue, they were just like, no worries, too easy. And well, that's not easy, and you should be worried. Why are you?
Attention, audience! We're having to cancel the entire festival. Please go home. No worries. And then the whole crowd in unison, no worries.
I love that. But I was thinking, when you watch, it's such a weird thing. Never in our past, before TV, before things being recorded where you could hear yourself, you could just imagine that things went better than they did. You can always just cast a glowing light on, and you can kind of shape you can reframe your past memories and everything.
Yeah.
And when you watch yourself, it's almost a heightened amount of criticism because it's permanent. There's nothing you can do. Anyone can see this at any time. And it's like, oh my God, I used twice in a row. Oh my, you use one not two ums in a row. What is wrong with it? It's such a crazy, the reaction to it is so disproportionate and insane.
Yeah, this perfect version of ourselves in our head that, and I think about that with history too, because we only have 100 years of recorded audio dialogue, maybe a little bit more, but go back 300 years, we don't know what people sounded like, what they talked like, were their voices low the way we like to put them in movies and they all speak with a British accent, or did they sound like wieners? Did they all have high-pitched nasally whining voices, and they had wooden teeth and a tongue infection, and just everyone just sounded stupid?
Wooden teeth and a tongue infection. And it took them 2 months to write that beautiful letter that you see and it's recorded. Like, wow, who talks like that? It was like, well, they spent a year on that page.
Do you ever see knight armor in museums? A knight's armor, and they're 4'7" or something. And you're like, this is a knight? I could kick this guy's ass. I could
especially with all that armor on. Tip him right over.
Yeah.
There had to have been people like, maybe I'm just gonna not do the armor, and I'm just going to sneak in there, poke 5 guys between their armor quick.
Yeah, that wasn't that hard. Looks like I'm the new king now.
Do you think it's one of those? I almost feel like tech can be this way, where you discover a new tool and you're like, well, let's use this and let's put it on everything. You know, you have a shield and well, what if we also put it here? And what if you put the whole thing and it looks kind of cool? And
why don't they make the whole plane out of the black box? The black box is indestructible. I've got an idea. Make it out of a black box.
Such a terrible
now
idea.
I'm turning into big You would have saved Kobe's life.
Dude, your microphone doesn't like when you Bert Kreischer.
Oh, I shouldn't do it anymore.
It was cutting it. When you used the whistle that one time, it was like, we're gonna drop that down to 10% of the sound. The mic does whatever filters are on your mic cancel out funny. Bert Kreischer.
Man, yeah, it looks like that's gonna be off limits then.
I think he just got backward
because it's it goes low and it's really excited about everything. It's why not have fun, man? Why don't we have fun? Life is supposed to be fun. I gave my daughter a handle of Jack and she threw up and it was fucking awesome. It well, Leanne's just being a bitch. Like, why do you give our daughter alcohol? It's like, because we're supposed to have fun. Why are you dead inside? She kicked me. I was asleep on the floor.
Oh my God. I have your Bert Kreischer makes me laugh like Bert Kreischer. That black box thing, that's always been one of my, I think that was part of the catalyst of starting to investigate science and want to present science more, is watching comedians do like, why don't they make the whole thing a black box? And be like, well, if you have to ask that. I mean, I get that it's a joke, but throw a Google search in or
every comics bit is just a straw man argument when you look at it.
So this was in the realm of taking an honest look at yourself when setting goals. That was I was thinking about that and setting expectations, thinking, because we've talked in the past about, ooh, Joe Rogan does this, I should do that, or Elon Musk is doing this, I should do that way. But they've found out the exact specific thing that works for exactly them, exactly their genetic makeup, exactly the environment they were raised in, and everything else. And I think that's that Arnold Schwarzenegger, like looking in the mirror and taking an honest look at whatever, your tricep or whatever. And I think that doing that when setting goals is, because if you want to just be a better person, whatever, you need to figure out what kind of person you actually are and what you want to improve upon, and be specific and make it measurable. So back to depression, the idea of that monkey sitting back and looking for the alternative strategies is, since I started thinking about depression like that, it's completely changed the course of it might have happened naturally, because this is a 5-10 year process of reframing it this way, but I always come up with amazing creative ideas when I'm not always, but usually I do. And often that's the thing that slingshots me out of the darkness. It's almost as if when you hit rock bottom and nothing truly matters, not just paying lip service to existential dread, but really getting to a place in your mind where it's like, I just don't give a fuck about any of this, and I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, it's not a far place to get to.
It isn't, but there's something about it, breaks you free of the attachments that you have and the patterns in your life, and it allows your subconscious to sometimes make a new connection that's so much better in line with the path that you might now benefit from at the stage that you're in currently in life, that it just that it usually like rips me right out of that state. I think it's why I'm bipolar, is just because I'll be in that low state for a long time and then like, whoa, and then I get super excited about a thing and put it all together, and so that I thought of that when I was thinking of the theme. We're putting together this new podcast. That means settling on a name, making the art, making a theme song, creating social media accounts, website potentially.
We've already got
figuring
a team.
out a plan, having team meetings. There's all this stuff in this upstart for a thing that this might be the next 10 years of our lives, for all we know. This might be tours, this might be, who knows? And because that could be a path that we're on for so long, it makes a whole lot of sense for the brain to pump the brakes some and be like, wait, before we go down this journey, you know what I mean?
Before the monkey takes on his second fight.
Let's make sure it's actually the path that you should be going down. And for me, that's something that I've started paying attention to. When I'm depressed, I just think, well, is there something else that I should be doing? Maybe that's just my subconscious that wants me to pick up on something where I'm just off on my trajectory.
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, perhaps the idea seeds only can be harvested from that low place, and you can't get access to it unless you shut everything down and kind of descend. And even all those metaphors sound too cool, like when people call it the shadow realm or the deep sea or rock. It's like, well, that would at least be cool. This is something else. It's not my rock prison that I have to escape from. And
that's my biggest thing, is trying to make sure I don't romanticize those, because then once I start reframing them, and as a comedian, when you can make money peddling your insecurities, the subconscious will be like, well, here's some more insecurities for you. Is this what we're being rewarded for now? Here's some other awful stuff about yourself. You may not
I'm sure
have noticed.
You've had the thought before of, I think every comedian has the thought of, no, I don't want to get too happy because then I'll lose my funny.
Yeah.
Instead of seeing the happiness as better than the funny, and perhaps a different funny. If you're happy, perhaps you can still use the funniness, but not coming from a place of it all sucks. It's fucking worthless. You're listening to the Real Ass Podcast.
I've had that thought, and I know it's a common thing in comedy, but I usually lean towards, let's cross that bridge when we get there. let's get to happy, experience it for a while, and if it really starts costing things my career, then we'll reassess it. I did think that when I moved to Malibu. When I moved to Malibu and I was banging a super hot lady, and I was spending every day on the beach, and I was in CrossFit, and I was taking really good care of myself, and felt like living the high life. It was hard. I would often bring my notebook to the beach and sit on the ocean at Billionaires Beach, where I didn't live on it, but I lived across the street from it. I lived across the street from David Geffen's house. So I'd be in front of David Geffen of Geffen Records, who discovered Nirvana, or made a fortune off Nirvana anyway. And I would bring my notepad to write jokes, and I'm just looking at paradise. And it was a little hard to there's just gorgeous people around and stuff.
Yeah, and you're thinking about like doing a 5-minute set at the Comedy Store or something.
Yeah.
How can I generate some vile observations to tell in front of these drunk people while the sun is shining down on you? And there's a lot of people who their trip to the beach is nothing like that. Like, they don't even have access to a beach that nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like back in Texas, when we would go to the beach, it's kind of brown. It's kind of like grainy. You can't make sandcastles. There's needles sometimes. And then Malibu or Orange County, it's just that white sand and the green, blue, see-through water.
Yeah.
Nothing like it.
It's so amazing. So
there's things like it, just, you know.
So I wanted to address that too, for people listening, the depression thing of, okay, now you're taking on a task. One, there's also analysis paralysis, which is you go, okay, so Shane and Ramin said to pick one thing. I saw Ramin's awesome thing that said, do one thing, accomplish 10, rather than pick 10 things and accomplish none of them. That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, here's the 10 things I want to do. I'll pick one. But I think the depression can get involved in that analysis paralysis too. What is the Keystone Habit? Is it a finance thing? Is it a personal fitness thing? Is it a career thing? Is it a relationship thing? Whatever. Is it a new, do I just need a new hobby? And so I think reframing, paying attention to, is that delusional self-hatred? I don't even think self-hatred is always delusional. I think you can hate yourself sometimes and it's quite accurate, but
parts of yourself at least.
Yeah. I used to have a joke about how I hate myself sometimes and people get so uncomfortable when you say that, but you can hate everyone else. You can, if I got on stage and I was like, my neighbor, boy, do I hate them. Everyone's like, man, I have a neighbor like that. And throughout human history, you could be like, here, we're going to circle this map. This people in this circle, we hate them, and people are like, yeah, let's go to war with them. And people are
it reminds me of Mark Norman's joke where he's like, it's not okay to hate a specific group of people. So if you said like, I hate Mexicans, be like, hey, you're racist. But it's like, I hate people. It's like, yeah, me too, brother.
Yeah. And everyone could be like, I hate everyone equally. Like, yeah, people suck. But the moment you're like, I hate myself sometimes, people are like, no, don't do, you can't do. And I used to be like, I wrote it right after I did the same. If I hated a group of people I've never met, I would be an incredible. I know what I did. I know I bought a $500 drone with not just money I didn't have, but the last $500 of credit line that I have, and then promptly flew it into a field goal post and watched it explode. I get to hate myself for that.
Oh, yes.
Why can't I hate myself for that?
Don't be so hard on yourself. Do you know Brody Reed? He's a comedian in LA.
No.
He's an actor too. He does a lot of stuff, but he had this stand-up bit. I only remember part of it. It was a very long bit, but he would just list things and then say yes or no about them. So he'd be like, Black people, yes. Trans people, yes. People, no. Trans bathrooms, yes. Bathrooms, no. Pee, no. Poo, no. Gross. And just showing that we're like all for a thing. It's like, yes, I'm pro trans people. Are you pro people? No. If the group gets big enough, it's okay to hate it. Or if it's small enough, you can be like, I hate Steve.
Yeah. You can hate individuals and the human condition.
Yeah, just nowhere in between. There's also like, here I am, like,
that would be a really cool piece of art.
Which one?
That could be an interesting.
You can hate little and big, but not middle. Or yeah. Dimitri Martin had a joke about like being specific, because you could be like, I love kids. But if you're like, I love 12-year-olds, it's like, what? I'm just saying I love this age of kids.
It does make me think about teachers differently. I want to teach 6th graders. Like, why? Why that age specifically? That's not I think you just fall into where the position's open.
Yeah, you have to work your way up to kindergarten. Yeah. I think the newbies, the privates in the Army that is public school, are probably like 7th and 8th grade teachers.
Yeah.
And then senior is easy probably. This is what I've heard from teachers, because the end is in sight. Like juniors and seniors, they're like, they know they're going to be out of here. And kindergarten, 1st grade, they're still cute. They don't know what's going on. But 7th graders, they've been in school their whole lives, and from where they're standing, they're always going to be in school, and this is it. And we're just trying to like have some laughs while we're in hell. So I get it. Those were the worst years.
Oh, those were the worst years.
The social hierarchy is volatile, and your body is also like fluctuating. You're like,
And you
forget
literally
it
have
if
to
you move.
change in front of people. You have to go in there, and then there's an adult that watches you and is like getting undressed in front of everybody.
But I thought we were supposed to just change in the boys' locker room. Everybody.
Such a hard time.
There's a gym teacher at my school that became a porn star. His name was Christian something. Like literally Christian, not like making a joke about Christianity, but he's the like really buff, bald guy from I think like a lot of early 2000s porn. I don't know if he still does it, but I always thought that was interesting. Like, hey, look, it's the guy. Look what he's doing.
That's
He couldn't do that back in school.
So I actually, every time we go off on wild tangents, I always think I like this at least as much as the direction we were going, and we get back to that anyway.
Yeah, the tangents are important, but also so is grounding in habits, goals, measurable increments.
Yeah, so taking an honest look at yourself that's not too hard, but is in fact honest. And this was the thing of overcoming something. So the likes, I realized that I just needed to keep watching it, and I just needed to see, I do it when I get excited. I do it when I'm talking with an academic where I'm about to be like, what about this study? And there's and it's like this sort of like thing, because I don't know exactly the specifics. And I know every scientist, as soon as I get done, basically I'm just regurgitating some other scientist, and I'm saying exactly what a scientist just told me. And then they're going to go, actually, as soon as I'm done saying it. And then I look like the idiot for just repeating perfectly what I was just told by someone by someone smarter than them. So I do that. And then then talking with you, I'll get excited and on the edge of my seat, and I'll start talking a little too fast. And I do it then as well. And I noticed that when we're at our best, I'm in between there. I'm not on the ends of it. And so that was just that observation made it so, okay, I got this stupid pesky goal of saying yes. But now, rather than just every time you say it, you put a coin in the like jar, and that's your punishment, and now you got to go and donate to some horrible cause. Have you seen those apps?
No. Wait, I've heard of the ones where like if you don't show up at the gym, it deducts money from your account or something.
Yeah, so some are every time I don't jog, when I say every other day I'm going to go jogging, and every other day every week that I didn't jog my 3.5 times that week, I have to pay $100 to Trump 2024 campaign.
Don Jr.
So you give money to a cause that you hate. Every time you screw up as your punishment.
There's some comic had a joke to where like you should have to upload dick pics, and then if you miss your workout, then it automatically sends it to your mother. So it's like already loaded in there, and it's not like with money where you're like, who cares? It's $5. But with that, you've got to be like, okay.
That I have a Fitbit, and I've been hitting the I'll do morning yoga, and sometimes I forget to plug it in that I'm doing yoga, and other times I hit yoga and then I forget to hit when I'm done. So then I'll look and it's just like, I've been doing yoga for 6 hours or whatever. And I would hate for my poor mother to get a dick pic unnecessarily. I actually did the thing. I got a caller. Sorry, Mom. That's a thing that I set up in my phone to motivate myself, thinking for sure I would do it. I forgot about the tech issues involved of remembering to press the button to confirm that I had done the thing. That's
It's been
what that's
sending
about.
it to me for 6 hours straight from different angles, and it won't stop.
It won't stop.
How do I turn off the notifications? Yeah, those little like punishment things don't. It's tough for me to stick with keeping track of it from a negative standpoint or positive. Like, let's say negative being it deducts money from your account, and positive being, you get to see your streaks and you get to see how many days in a row you've been active and how much time you've saved, all that. Like, I still, even if I'm doing the yoga every day, I can't bring myself to just hit the button that says I did it, because that's another thing I got to do. And I'm my own free American. You can't make me be a socialist by pressing a button. This is gun country.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing that I thought of is one of the things that they say with big habits, like you want to quit drinking or something, is to, rather than say I quit drinking, you say I don't drink. I identify you make that part of your identity. And so I've been playing around with just fiddling with this over the last week or so, of just in the morning going, who am I today? Like, not just, and then I realized I need to say, who am I this morning? Who am I this afternoon? Who am I this evening? Because those are very different people that operate on different levels and are good and bad at different tasks.
I hate it, but I get that that's the way it is. But I wish we could just be one person for a day. I'm not even asking for a week. I just want to be one person for a day. Can't morning me want the same things as night me, or do they have to battle each other?
That could be a fun piece of art too.
Yeah.
Do they have to battle each other?
Oh, did you say we have questions? Because I just want to make sure we're on track for time.
Let's do it next episode again.
Okay, cool. We never get to questions. It's like Matt Damon on Jimmy Kimmel's show, where we just constantly bump it.
I like that we set an intention at the start of the podcast of what we think we're going to talk about, and then it just goes off in a zillion different directions. And if we don't get to the end, it's just more to do next time anyway. So we'll definitely.
Like, this was supposed to be about sloth masturbation habits, but we ended up talking about just regular goal setting. And the thumbnail, we already made the video thumbnail and everything, so it gets all these clicks, but they're like, hey, where's the goods? I want to do it slow like a sloth. I want to keep the party going for 20 hours. I just learned about that category. Have you heard of the porn category of gooning?
No.
Apparently gooning is just when you have like 100 different windows open and just like you're sitting and watching it for like 10 hours. So people that just really go all in, and it's called gooning. I think that's the term, but I'll make sure. Correct us if I'm wrong.
So is that watching one after another, or is that
like all on the screen, multiple screens, like Marty McFly's father in Back to the Future 2?
Yeah,
just everywhere, just the
TV production.
The fall of Rome type of shit. This is like
the end of the Matrix, all of the TVs and the
yes, exactly that. I was like, what is this? And sure enough, I'm like, well, that makes sense. That makes sense that we would end up here. I'm glad I know that this is the edge of that universe.
The real ending is you show up there and they actually just show you all of the things that you imagined into your mind's eye were actually DVR'd. You see them all displayed at once. I go, that was a good one. What was going on that day? Was that a morning one or an evening one? Why can't I just jerk like one person for one full goon? I could. That's the worst thing about gooning. You start in the morning and you think you're all prepared for it, but by the time afternoon rolls around, you're into different stuff entirely.
Yeah, the FBI's at your door at 4:00.
I know you got to go, my friend. This is terrific. This is great. We'll pick up the conversation next time.
And I just
think
realized
that this is a perfect amount. Don't you think 90 minutes is kind of the sweet spot for what we're doing? With
it's like
wiggle
a stand-up
room
show.
To have, sometimes we'll put an hour-long one on Patreon. Sometimes we'll end up just riffing for 2.5 hours just because we got into something. But I think 90 minutes is the sweet spot.
Like a stand-up show has the headliner that does an hour, and then you've got the feature that does 20 and a host that does 10, sometimes variant, but generally 90 to 2 hours, I think, is the sweet spot.
Yeah, I like it. All right, next time is probably questions for sure.
Oh, for sure. Maybe. And I wanted to say that I just noticed that the old title, Look Ma No Meaning, contains Ma, which is the title of the new show, which is Mom. So we already had the Ma part figured out. And now that's just a subset of it. But whose turn is it to sign off? I forget.
I
think it's you, right?
Yeah.
So till next time.
Keep on salivating, honeys. Ding! Ding! Thanks for listening, everybody. Next week on the show, we're talking all about, we get into the evolution of a lot of self-deception sort of stuff. Why does your subconscious tell you the story about yourself that it does? Sometimes it embellishes our ego and how attractive we think we are. Other times we're too hard on ourselves, and that's delusional as well. Tends to lean toward the way of everyone thinking they're a better driver than average or smarter than average. It tends to just go that way. What are some of the evolutionary underpinnings of that super fun episode? But I know you guys don't want to wait a whole week to hear us again. Ramin, is there anything that we can do for these people?
Well, there's one thing we can do, but first you'd have to go to our Patreon, which is at patreon.com/mindunderpod. and sign up for any of the donation tiers, and you'll get access to an extra bonus episode every month, and you'll get access to an entire other series called Mind Under Art, in which Shane asks me questions about art pieces submitted by you, the viewer. So send in your questions, join our cult, and you will learn all the terminology that you might not understand what it means.
Whether you're a void or a visionary, or a Camante de Buffon, or a honey, if you're, especially the Huns, but if you're a lunatic. Oh, I actually, because we have a Patreon tier called Honeys, and I was copying and one of the things that you get is the only recorded special. So at this higher tier, you get the only recorded show from my good trip tour. I was at Largo, I was at Sveni, all of the good stand-up footage and Psychonautics. It was from one show. It's the only time it was recorded. And I was going to make it a special. COVID happened. Anyway, so I release it. You get that on there, right? And then I was copying and pasting that to another person for another thing. And because someone needed it for Patreon tier on the Shane Mauss Patreon. Anyway, and so I copy and pasted it, and then I realized at the end that I just called someone a honey. I was like, thanks, honey. Completely out of context.
Oh, that's good. Now you're one of those people.
Now I'm one of those people.
You're a Waffle House waitress in Tennessee. Can I get you more coffee, hon?
So if you so if you guys go to Patreon, you can find out all the weird characters in the weird city and universe that we're building on Patreon. It's really awesome, and you guys are awesome for supporting. Thank you.